Welcome to a lesson in the National Ready Mixed Concrete Association's online safety series. The lesson consists of a video that is immediately followed by a short quiz. The Lockout, Tagout, Tryout in the Ready Mixed Concrete Industry Part 1 video lesson was generously funded by the RMC Research and Education Foundation.
I'm sure your company would like to reduce liability, lower the number of hazardous energy accidents, and improve worker compliance with the OSHA federal standards on lockout, tagout, and tryout at your ready-mixed concrete plants. That's exactly what the National Ready-Mixed Concrete Association wants to help you do in this program. In this video, we're not only going to cover work methods that assist you in complying with the OSHA standard contained in 29 CFR 1910 Part 147, but we're also going to demonstrate best management practices that will help you minimize accidents and injuries from hazardous energy. Let's use safe work methods at all times for the control of hazardous energy at ready-mixed concrete plants.
A ready-mixed concrete plant seems to be fairly simple in its energy operations, right? You turn on the primary power terminals, and the energy flows into the plant. That's the long and the short of it, right? We have a late-breaking news flash. It's not quite that simple. In fact, there are many potential sources of hazardous energy to power and operate the plant and its equipment. They are electrical, hydraulic, pneumatic, gravity, stored energy, chemical, thermal, mechanical, and possibly other sources of hazardous energy operating the plant's equipment.
Hey Milo, since I know you're upstairs batching, we're going to have to shut down the chiller for a little while. It'll be about 30 minutes or so, and we'll give you a call when we got it back up for you. 10-4.
Employees and workers beware. These are 10 of the most common problems for failure to comply with lockout, tagout, and tryout at a ready-mixed concrete plant, and they are: Number 1, a lack of procedures or a failure to have specific procedures for each piece of equipment. Number 2, a lack of training for all employees. The normal repair staff is generally well-trained. It's other workers who aren't adequately trained. Number 3, a wrong use of tags. Tags are improperly used for other purposes rather than maintenance or repair. Number 4, a wrong use of locks. Often special lockout locks are incorrectly used on toolboxes, lockers, and other locations. Number 5, working under and using someone else's personal lock. Number 6, not correctly and completely identifying all energy sources when lockout, tagout, and tryout are required for a procedure. Number 7, failure to have an annual review of all hazardous energy sources and lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures. New energy sources may have been added. Energy source labels need to be in place. Number 8, failure to adequately train employees in what is maintenance and what are simply minor routine tool changes. Number 9, oversight. Just incorrectly assuming that every lockout, tagout, and tryout procedure is always going to be the same. Number 10, duplicate keys available to other workers, which enable non-authorized employees to override a lockout, tagout, and tryout procedure.
Right here and now, let's pledge to eliminate the 10 most common problems that lead to failure to comply with lockout, tagout, and tryout at your ready-mixed concrete plant. Also, let's agree to never use these 3 excuses to bypass control of hazardous energy. It'll only take a few minutes to do this. We don't need to lock out that equipment. We won't get hurt. That only happens to the other guys. Hey, we've always done it this way. Don't worry about the lockout procedure. With the proper attitude and standardized training, let's move ahead.
got to remember, Richard, this plant has got 2 blowers. Let's go back. Yeah, see, we've got blower 1, which is the pig blower, and blower 2, which is the plant blower.
Compliance with OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1910 Part 147 is mandatory at ready-mix concrete plants. Compliance is not optional. The law covers the servicing and maintaining of plant machines and equipment in which unexpected energization or startup of the machines or equipment or release of stored energy can cause accidents and injuries. Parts of the OSHA standard require employers to establish a program with specific lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures for all energized equipment at a ready-mix concrete plant.
You know, guys, one of the most important things about lockout, tagout is it's going to be one lock, one tag, one key for every guy. We can't be sharing locks. Every guy must have their own lock.
It also specifies employers are to train employees in how to properly use and install lockout, tagout, energy disabling devices. It mandates that employees must train and employers must train workers to disable machines or equipment to prevent unexpected startup, energization, or release of stored energy. So how does OSHA standard define servicing or maintaining requiring lockout, tagout, and tryout? OSHA's definition says ready-mix concrete industry activities such as constructing, installing, setting up, adjusting, inspecting, modifying, and maintenance or servicing machines or equipment all fall under the law. These activities also include lubricating, cleaning, and or unjamming of conveyor belts. Additionally, the activities cover making adjustments or tool changes to equipment at a ready-mix concrete plant, in which the employee may be exposed to the unexpected energization or startup of the equipment, or there's a release of hazardous energy.
What are the proper lockout, tagout procedures for this area?
I would throw these 2 disconnects. I would turn this water off and check here for the pump to come on.
You're probably trying to get a handle on the definitions of energized and energy source. Well, here they are. Energized is defined as connected to any energy source or containing residual or stored energy. Energy source is defined as any source of electrical, mechanical, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, or other energy that may be present. These 4 employee task situations require that lockout, tagout, and tryout be applied before work can commence. Number 1, service or maintenance. Number 2, removing or bypassing guards or other safety devices. Number 3, employee exposure to sources of power or motion. And number 4, before reaching into a point of operation or other danger zone. As an authorized employee and before any installation, removal, servicing, or maintenance of any energized equipment at the plant, first, go read the ready-mix concrete plant's written energy control procedures for that and or related equipment. Before starting any procedure, determine what the energy control procedures are required for your work task. Every piece of plant equipment should have a written energy control procedure. The machine name and location should be identified. There may be special notes or instructions. Energy sources applicable to this equipment should be defined and highlighted. Then, every step should be written out and followed for the actual lockout, tagout, and tryout procedure for that equipment. And finally, the energy control devices needed for the procedure should all be very clearly defined. If you don't find the written procedures, stop and immediately consult with your supervisor or plant manager before proceeding.
I've been looking for this blower I need to lock out, and I'm not getting the codes to match. Any idea why the codes don't match the procedure that's here?
Here on the schematic, it shows our 2 blowers. 111BL1 and 111BL2.
When it comes to hazardous energy control at the plant, there should be no guesswork as to what lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures may be required. Also, don't just assume that because you performed this task many times before, that by memory alone, you know all of the important energy control procedures. Existing equipment may have been replaced or repaired, or new equipment may have been modified requiring new lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures. Additionally, as a best management practice, use a lockout, tagout, and tryout logbook each time a device is applied to the equipment and is then removed. The logbook identifies the machine procedure number, employee or employees, and/or outside contractors, action to be completed and why, date and time of the lockout, tagout, tryout, and date and time that the machine or equipment is returned to service. There are some exemptions to written equipment-specific lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures, and on rare occasions, the employer need not document the required procedure for a particular machine or equipment, but only when all of these exemptions exist. At a ready-mix concrete plant, written procedures are needed for literally all equipment.
Here you go, Dan. We need to make sure we put the steering wheel warning cover on and make sure that we get the battery disconnect turned off.
There are 3 employee classifications under ready-mix concrete plant lockout, tagout, and tryout. They are authorized employees, affected employees, and other employees. These employee classifications are based on an employee's training, experience, and extent of training and knowledge of lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures and policies.
Okay, guys, let's make sure we've got all the steps covered. We've got the batteries disconnected, we've got the steering wheel cover in place, we've got the cab locked, we've got the power cord locked out.
Authorized employees are employees who have been extensively trained and have demonstrated their ability to apply and remove lockout, tagout, tryout devices on machines or equipment. They've also been trained and can demonstrate their skills in performing service or maintenance on affected equipment. These employees must be able to demonstrate proper lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures and have the knowledge to properly work on, install, inspect, and/or repair plant-energized equipment. Affected employees are workers whose job requires them to operate or use a machine or equipment on which servicing or maintenance is being performed under lockout, tagout, tryout. They could also be an authorized employee if they service or maintain the equipment. Training of employees is critical because these employees may be required to try and restart equipment under lockout, tagout, tryout if proper communication is not established.
What's this? Oh!
Other employees are all employees who don't fall into the other groups and who need to be able to recognize lockout, tagout devices and not attempt to start, energize, or use equipment under lockout and tagout. As itemized earlier, the sources of hazardous energy can be broken down into 8 categories. Some equipment may have multiple sources of energy requiring multiple lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures prior to replacement, servicing, and/or maintenance of that equipment. Electrical energy is definitely contained in this exterior plant power panel with switches. Hydraulic energy powers this interior plant pump. Pneumatic energy is actually an air source of energy found in air compressors like this one. Gravity is a form of energy present in the operation of a central mixer at the plant. The mixer can be locked out, tagged out, and tried out in the up or in the down position. Stored energy can be present in forms such as spring, air, hydraulic, or chemical. Air compressors are likely users of stored energy. Chemicals are certainly an energy source present. In many cases, chemical energy will be associated with admixtures used in ready-mix concrete mix designs. Chemical lines can contain stored energy. This energy source is thermal. The term thermal relates to both hot and cold temperatures. In our example, we're looking at a boiler which produces steam and very hot water under pressure. Steam-powered equipment does contain stored energy as well. Mechanical energy will often be found in motors with chains, sprockets, or belts associated with the powering of a conveyor or other equipment in the plant. Now, as you can see, there are multiple sources of energy powering equipment. Every plant layout, location of sources of energy, pieces of equipment, and the types of equipment may be very different. No matter the variations, you must have a plant layout map or a diagram of equipment location, and then written lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures for every piece of equipment requiring hazardous energy control.
By now you're beginning to realize you don't just write lockout, tagout, tryout procedures in the palm of your hand, and nor do you try to completely memorize them. Also, you'll agree every plant's equipment and hazardous energy sources may be in very different locations. The bottom line is hazardous energy control is very serious business, requiring total plant employee training and very detailed written procedures. Let's move ahead with the required lockout, tagout devices and equipment-specific procedures for controlling hazardous energy.
Under lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures, all authorized employees must have tags and individually keyed locks assigned to them. As a best management practice, each of these employees is issued their own lock, and there is no sharing of locks and keys. A supervisor may keep a copy of individual keys as long as they are secured and not available for employee use. The one key per one lock eliminates the chances of someone bypassing a lockout, tagout, and tryout procedure. Lockout, tagout devices include hasps, covers, blocks, blinds, and the like. These devices are going to come in all shapes and sizes to fit and to lock out and tag out equipment and machinery using different sources of hazardous energy. The devices must have a standardized look, color, and shape. A standardized color scheme would be red devices for plant employees and yellow devices for contractors. The OSHA Lockout Tagout standard specifies that devices must be 1. Durable, 2. Standardized, 3. Substantial, and 4. Identifiable. Durable. The lockout tagout devices must be capable of withstanding the environment to which they are exposed for the maximum period of time the exposure is expected. Standardized. The devices shall be standardized within the facility in at least one of the following categories: color, shape, or size. Also, all tags must have the same print and format. Substantial. The device shall be substantial enough to prevent removal without the use of excessive force or unusual techniques, such as the use of bolt cutters or other metal cutting tools. Identifiable. The device shall clearly indicate the identity of the employee applying the device. All of these requirements must be met by devices in order to comply with the OSHA Lockout Tagout standard.
As a best management practice, NRMCA has designed a 5-step equipment-specific lockout, tagout, tryout process. This particular best management practice is not required by the OSHA standard. However, we believe NRMCA's 5-step equipment-specific process will better prepare you and your employees to control hazardous energy in your ready-mixed concrete plants.
Here is the NRMCA 5-step equipment-specific lockout, tagout, and tryout process. Number 1. Ensure that all breakers, electrical panels, air valves, hydraulic valves, and sources of energy are labeled with the service they provide. Use a consistent numbering and labeling system. An example, electrical breakers can be labeled B1, B2, B3. Electrical panels could be labeled EP1, EP2, EP3. Air valves, AV1, AV2, AV3. Hydraulic valves, HV1, HV2, HV3. Use brass tags to mark all outside services except electrical. Number 2. Make sure that all valves, breakers, and electrical panels have the ability to be locked out and tagged out. If not, when they are replaced or modified, then make sure they will accept lockout-tagout devices. Number 3 is for you to draw a layout of the facility and equipment at the facility. Check with your engineering department for blueprints or modified as-builts. Show the locations of all machinery and equipment in the facility. Illustrate the locations of all electrical breakers, control panels, and valves.
Okay, Milo, let's enter these steps in the computer here. We got step 1.
The 4th step is to write the machine-specific procedure that will be followed to ensure the machine to be worked on is in an energy-neutral, energy-controlled state. You want to have the employees who operate the machines write the procedure or give input. It is recommended to use a database or a computer-based program to assist in compiling written procedures. The 5th and final step is to review the final procedures with authorized employees and then to set up an annual review process.
Okay, guys, how many lockout points do we have for this piece of equipment?
There's two. The electrical disconnect and the water valve.
Number 1. Preparation by authorized employees for shutdown is step 1. This includes identifying how many sources of energy and what kinds of energy must be locked out and tagged out. It also includes describing in order all steps of equipment service, maintenance, repair, replacement, and/or installation. It must include steps for reversal of lockout, tagout, and tryout procedures.
Hey Milo, we're gonna have to shut down the chiller for a little while, so we gotta do some work on it. It's gonna be about 30 minutes or so, and we'll call you back when we got it ready to go.
Number 2. Next, affected employees should be notified that lockout, tagout, and tryout is about to take place on a specific piece or pieces of equipment. Often this step is overlooked, but it is most important because affected employees operate the equipment, and they will be the ones attempting to restart the equipment after reversal of lockout, tagout, and tryout. Number 3. Now an authorized and/or affected employee must turn off or isolate all energy sources to the equipment to be inspected or worked on. Number 4. At this point, all appropriate lockout, tagout devices must be correctly identified, labeled, and then applied to correct locations to ensure energy isolation to the correct equipment. Indeed, multiple devices may need to be applied in multiple locations. Number 5. Any and all stored energy must be completely secured and/or released. Number 6. All employees should verify all forms of energy isolation. Number 7. All attempts must be made to resupply all sources of energy and restart the equipment. This step must confirm all sources of energy are isolated and that the equipment will not restart at this time.
The next piece is machine guarding, which will be taken off of the machine to do our inspection and cleaning. Once we're done with the job, the guarding's got to go back on in the proper way.
Number 8. Every person working on the equipment should attach an individualized lock with ID tag attached to the correct lockout tagout point. A best management practice is to have a group lockout box where the technicians place their keys in the box and then the supervisor locks the box. Now, all cleaning, maintenance, adjustments, repair, or installation of equipment must be performed. The supervisor will be the one to tell all employees when the job has been completed. Number 9. For reversal of a lockout tagout tryout procedure and removal of lockout tagout devices, follow these steps. A. All machine or equipment guards must be reinstalled, secured, and in place. B. All tools must be removed. C. Ensure the machine components are operational and intact. Remove any and all non-essential items. D. Safely position or remove employees from the work area prior to the removal of lockout-tagout devices. Notify affected employees that lockout-tagout devices are about to be removed. After the removal of the lockout-tagout devices, notify affected employees again. Each lockout-tagout device must be removed by the employee that applied the device. Once again, check to be sure that all employees are removed and positioned out of harm's way from energy sources or equipment operation. Now, equipment may be restarted and/or tested. There are certain times a lockout-tagout device may have to be removed without the employee being on site. The employer must verify the authorized employee who applied that device is not at the facility. The employer has made all reasonable efforts to contact the absentee employee. And when the authorized employee returns to the plant or facility, the employer informs the employee of removal of the device.
In closing today, we want to re-emphasize there is a considerable amount of planning, training, documentation, and supervision of employees when it comes to lockout, tagout, and tryout. By combining OSHA standards with best management practices, you can design and implement a safe and successful hazardous energy control program at your plants and facilities. And this is just part 1 of our lockout, tagout, and tryout training series. NRMCA continues with the training in part 2, which covers employee shift changes, new equipment installation, contractor lockout tagout, mixer truck drum lockout procedures, lockout tagout training, and periodic inspections. We at NRMCA thank you for your participation in today's lesson. Remember, practice the safe way every day in all tasks and activities at your plant.
Please do not log off. The short quiz starts immediately after the video's credits. There are 5 questions on this quiz. After you answer all 5 questions, you will immediately receive your score. If you pass, you can print your certificate of completion. If you do not pass, you can retake the quiz or rewatch the video.